Hi there, welcome back to another drawing video. Thanks for checking this out. If you're new here, my name is Siobhan. I'm a figure drawing instructor, and on this channel I post videos related to dynamic and expressive approaches to drawing the figure. I share my own process, and I also offer tips and techniques for unlocking your own natural and responsive style of drawing. So if that's something that interests you, then definitely subscribe and stay tuned. I try my best to post a new video every week. So today I'm sharing a drawing with you that I made using ink and charcoal. These are two mediums that I often use when drawing the figure from life. I thought it would be interesting to explore them in the studio working from a photo reference. As usual, I'm using a photo reference from the New Masters Academy YouTube channel, and I'll leave a link in the description below to that exact video with the timestamp for the exact pose. So you can go and check it out if you want to refer back to the photo that I'm working from. And then before we start, I just wanted to show you the materials that I'm using today. This is not exactly your regular run-of-the-mill bottle of ink. What you've got is this sort of flat dish. I think it's made of stone. And then you also have this block or this stick of ink. And what you have to do is fill this dish with water and then stir the block or the stick into the water so that it kind of dissolves a little bit and the ink makes a really nice wash. It's not dark at all, it's not heavy, it's actually just a very, very light tone. So those are the materials that I'm using. Here's the short video. I'll talk a little bit about my process and then I'll check back in with you at the end. Working with ink is definitely not easy. Even though I'm using it as a drawing tool, I think having to work with a brush and wet medium really feels more like painting or watercolor painting anyway. But the effect of ink can also be very graphic because it dries so quickly. Once it's dry, you can't move it around or erase or wash it out. So any marks that you make are final. So at the beginning, I'm actually very nervous to make marks. I'm trying to approximate the shadows of the model, but even that's not so easy to do. And in the end, I think I just go for a regular drawing approach. And just try and use the brush and the ink as any other drawing tool. So that involves, close observation, sort of a response, and just making marks to really try and capture the overall pose at first and not worry too much about the details. I'm just trying to go for a regular drawing approach and aim for the shape and the gesture of the figure. Now, I know from working with this before, working with this kind of drawing tool before, that I am going to draw over these initial ink marks with charcoal. So in a way, it's okay to be very wobbly at the stage and just to sort of, place the brush down in certain parts and let the ink pool up or push the ink around as much as I can, because it doesn't have to be so definite or defined at the stage. the beauty of working over this with a pencil is that you can then add definition and add details on top of these first loose gestural marks. By the way, I should say that I don't know what the name of this ink and brush set is. I'm sure it's a very specific setup, and I'm sure it's used in Japanese painting or calligraphy. So if you happen to know if you're familiar with this sort of ink block, and if you're familiar with this ink block, please let me know below in the comments. If there is a specific name, I'd love to know. At this point, I'm going to stop using ink and switch over to a charcoal pencil. This is where the tricky part is, because what I'm doing here is working into wet media, but I also think it's the most interesting part of the drawing, because this now offers you an opportunity to make very dark marks. The charcoal working into the ink is very different than just either one of those on their own. Then there's also the problem that if the charcoal gets wet, it doesn't actually tend to draw like it normally draws. So all of that kind of unpredictability I actually quite like working with. So I start at the head and try to work in the shadow shapes around the face, and in particular the shadow shapes that sort of hold the head in place, like under the chin and along the side. I find now that I get a lot of variation in the drawing, and to me that's important, because I try to have a drawing that isn't monotone throughout, or doesn't have the exact same mark throughout. I'm always trying to vary the mark in some way or another. I have talked about this a lot in other videos. I'm really not trying to make a flawless, perfect representation of my reference image. I'm trying to make a drawing that's more of a response to what I see and what I understand in the image. And that really comes down to your experience and how you use drawing as a form of expression, really. So it's something that's important to me. It's not something that you maybe necessarily like. A lot of people are really into sort of a perfect, super hyper realistic drawing. They find that very, very appealing. That's something that I see as being sort of on the other end of the spectrum from where I'm working. One way of drawing isn't better than the other. I'm not saying that. I just personally find this way of drawing offers a much more profound way of expression than the other can offer. Let me know your thoughts, if you prefer a drawing that's more hyper-realistic or one that's a little bit more open and expressive. I'd love to hear your opinion on that. Ultimately, I think an expressive and gestural way of drawing really does have as much detailed observation as classical, realistic way of drawing. It's just that you have a lot more freedom to respond with your marks based on what you observe. Thank you so much for watching this video all the way through to the end. I'm really pleased that you stuck with me throughout the video. I hope you enjoyed it and that you got something useful from it, maybe even got a bit inspired to explore expressive and natural and responsive drawing in your own work. So I will look out for you in the comments. I hope you have a great week and I'll see you in the next video.